In Pittsburgh, many young people are full of hope for the future. Faith became the chosen one while playing the Ouija board game with her brother Larry. This was not an ordinary game. Faith believes that as long as her brother does not interfere, she can find her destined other half among the chaotic letters. Her grandmother once said that everyone has their own soulmate. Even though her brother repeatedly questioned this statement, Faith never gave up on her search. After all, the name Faith itself represents belief. Sure enough, under the guidance of the Ouija board, Faith eventually got the name of her beloved. His name is Damon Bradley. As soon as Faith pronounced this name, a sudden gust of cold wind blew outside the window. As if it were a sign from heaven, Faith's soulmate is indeed Damon. One game was not enough to prove it, so the hopeful Faith sought out a renowned gypsy fortune teller. In the mysterious crystal ball, it seemed to reflect everyone's fate. The fortune teller murmured incantations, lowered her gaze in contemplation, and revealed that crucial name to Faith: Damon Bradley. Upon hearing this, Faith was filled with unbelievable joy. Faith was grateful to the heavens for helping her find her destined person. As they parted, the fortune teller left her with a saying: "True destiny is always in one's own hands. Never wait idly and miss the opportunity." This saying, like an oracle, was remembered by Faith for 14 years. 14 years later, Faith, who can write the word destiny in Italian, has become an enthusiastic literature lecturer. Faith often tells her students that the essence of destiny includes goals, journeys, and homes. A person's fate is like two separated hands. Only by coming together can it be complete. According to Plato's theory, all living beings were originally a complete circle, shattered due to divine punishment. People must constantly search to find their other half in some corner of the world. But time, like a child hearing the school bell, never stops for anyone. After class, Faith looked at the romantic mural on the wall and couldn't help but lament the twists of fate. Even though Faith still looks stunning, the person proposing to her is not Damon. Her childhood friends are all happy for Faith, but only Faith knows that she has not received the favor of heaven. The engagement ring sparkles brilliantly, but Faith always feels that something is missing in her romantic fate. A sudden phone call interrupted everyone's chatter. Larry's wife is Faith's best friend, Kate. Larry is still the practical and honest person he has always been. On the phone, Larry always talks about family matters, while the indifferent Kate has long ceased to feel the passionate affection from her husband's words before marriage. Kate, burdened by household chores, is nearly overwhelmed by the trivialities of life. Unlike Faith, who hopes for a beautiful marriage, Kate can no longer feel the sanctity and sweetness of love from the gentle love songs. The atmosphere is at odds with the wedding, yet the witty and reserved Dwayne has no intention of postponing his wedding with Faith in 10 days. As a doctor, Dwayne acts with rigor and seriousness, and even in close embraces, his awkwardness is hard to hide. Fortunately, the wedding dress passed down from Faith's mother-in-law has allowed this soon-to-be bride to regain her joyful spirit. After bidding farewell to friends and family, Faith can't help but imagine herself on her wedding day. Kate admires the beautifully dressed Faith, but looking at the pure white wedding dress, she increasingly recalls her own marriage that has become a mere formality. Kate grew up listening to beautiful fairy tales, but those living in reality will eventually awaken from their fantasies. Faith does not agree with Kate's negative thoughts. Faith believes that Kate must have many precious memories worth cherishing. But only tearful Kate understands that fate is not only beautiful, perhaps this is destiny. Before Kate can express her inner pain, a phone call catches Faith's attention. On the other end of the line is Dwayne's high school best friend. This person cannot attend his friend's wedding because he has to go on a business trip to Italy. In a hurry, he can only leave his blessings for his best friend. The name signed is Damon Bradley. Faith is extremely shocked upon learning this. The person she has been searching for all these years appears at such a delicate moment. Damon is about to board a flight to Venice, and Faith is determined to meet this fated person before the wedding. Kate cannot believe that Faith, in her wedding dress, would head straight to the airport. No matter how much Kate tries to persuade her, Faith firmly believes this is her destiny. Regardless of what kind of person Damon is, Faith wants to see him with her own eyes. Faith rushes all the way and finally arrives at the airport late at night. Ignoring the gazes of others, Faith heads straight to the boarding gate for the flight to Europe. But boarding has already closed, and Faith does not have a ticket. No matter how much Faith pleads, the staff are unwilling to make an exception for this woman in a wedding dress. Whether or not Faith's destined person is on the plane, boarding must be done with a ticket. Even as she watches the flight depart, the determined Faith does not give up. Faith tells Kate that if she cannot meet Damon, she will regret it for the rest of her life. Faith's unwavering belief deeply moves Kate from afar. Loyal friends bring Faith her luggage and passport, and the rare free Kate decides to accompany her. Although Kate no longer believes in destiny, she understands the importance of lifelong commitments. Thus, two women with completely different attitudes towards love embarked on a legendary journey to seek their fates. In Venice, they were greeted not by the drizzling rain of Pittsburgh, but by the bright sunshine of southern Europe. The shimmering water city welcomed every traveler from afar. The towering gondolas seemed to carry countless beautiful dreams. Faith and Kate, who had flown halfway across the world, were in awe of the beauty of Venice. If there is such a thing as destiny, this is the perfect place for a serendipitous encounter. Following the clues from the phone call, the two arrived at the renowned, stylish hotel. This is a place where social elites stay. Faith looked at the suave gentleman beside her and firmly believed they had come to the right place. Even if the expenses were high, it was worth a try. But what Faith never expected was that the mysterious Mr. Damon had checked out half an hour ago. According to the itinerary, he hadn't even spent the night there. Faith pleaded with the front desk to confirm again. Perhaps Mr. Damon was still in the lobby. The miracle did not happen. The key to room 217 reserved by Damon had already been returned. Seeing this, Kate seemed to ponder and quickly pulled the unwilling Faith back. Taking advantage of the staff's inattention, the two quietly entered room 217. From the traces in the room, it seemed Damon preferred high-calorie food. But the most important discovery for the two was a phone message written in Italian. The enthusiastic front desk staff dialed the number on the note. This number belonged to a shop in Rome, and the message for Damon was from a lady named Anna. Faith, thrilled to pick up the clue again, felt it was time to head to Rome. However, from the front desk's perspective, the timing was not right for them. At that moment, Rome was experiencing a massive strike. With no other choice, the two could only rent a car to drive there. The road to the capital should not have led them further into the countryside. By the time they realized they were on the wrong route, there was very little fuel left in the car. At that moment, the only solace for the two was the pastoral scenery of Italy. Pensive, Kate couldn't help but think of the time in Pittsburgh. The two places, thousands of miles apart, not only had a time difference, but also vastly different cultures. Faith gradually began to worry that the two of them, who only knew a few phrases in Italian, might really be unable to find Damon. But Kate's worries went far beyond this matter. The reason Kate insisted on accompanying Faith was not only because her mother would help take care of the children. Kate had expressed her feelings to Larry. She sensed that her husband was having an affair. Even without concrete evidence, Kate's intuition had never been wrong. But Faith always remembered that her brother had once deeply loved Kate. Had that sincere feeling already faded with time? At least at this moment, Faith, who was pursuing her destiny, did not want to believe that. Perhaps heaven sensed Faith's sincerity as a passing nun filled their vehicle with fuel. Two people replenishing their energy continue forward with the blessing of the Virgin Mary. Meanwhile, Kate's troubles have triggered a chain reaction across the ocean. Even during the holiday, the dedicated Dwayne is still treating patients. Equally busy is Larry, who is acquainted with him. Larry, who is struggling to make a living, rarely puts down his work. What troubles Larry is the missing Kate. Larry sees the message left by his wife and is aware of the gap between them. But in fact, Larry has never done anything to betray his family. Larry firmly believes that the resolute Kate will be with her sister, and he will never give up. It can be seen that the members of the Faith family all have a stubborn nature. After many twists and turns, Faith and Kate finally arrive in magnificent Rome. Anna, who left a message for Damon, is a clerk at this store. For some reason, the usually friendly Anna becomes heartbroken upon hearing Damon's name. Fortunately, store manager Giovanni arrives in time to calm the agitated clerk. Giovanni informs the two that Damon will be at a restaurant in Rome that evening. In addition, Giovanni also takes a liking to the melancholic Kate. Weary from the journey, Kate takes the opportunity to have Giovanni recommend a fine inn. Once settled, the two prepare meticulously for dinner. Faith wants to present herself in the best state to welcome her destined person. Kate advises Faith, based on her own experiences, to accept any situation calmly. Dressed to the nines, the two arrive at the restaurant on time. Faith, filled with anticipation along the way, suddenly feels nervous at the last moment. Could her destined person be the figure ahead? Faith dares not approach recklessly. Hesitant in her steps, Faith has no choice but to let Kate go and inquire. After asking, Kate indeed receives important news. Mr. Damon is sitting directly behind Faith. With just a change of angle, Faith can see Damon's arm. That may be the most handsome arm Faith has ever seen in her life. Having traveled 4,000 miles, Faith finally shortens the distance to her destined person to 15 meters. With her wish about to come true, Faith prepares to introduce herself. But during the strike period in Rome, the busy restaurant is particularly hectic. Cautious Faith accidentally knocks over a tray, causing chaos on the scene. By the time Faith regains her senses, her destined person has vanished. This is the situation Faith least wants to see. Fortunately, the other party has not gone far. Faith believes she can catch up. A piece of a sleeve is enough for Faith to lock onto her target. Having just run through the airport terminal, Faith now weaves through the streets of Rome. Even if she bumped into a man who had taken off his coat, and even if she lost her shoes while running, Faith had no time to apologize. Fortunately, not everyone was as hurried as Faith. The man, who did not get angry, picked up the high heels and chased after her. This scene inevitably reminded one of the story of Cinderella. However, becoming Faith's destined partner was not an easy task. Focusing only on her sleeves, Faith unsurprisingly lost track of Damon. Barefoot, Faith returned, causing Kate great concern. Sleepy-eyed Faith could not understand why the person destined for her would avoid her. What was once so close was suddenly out of reach. Regardless, Faith would not give up on the fate she firmly believed in. But Faith did not realize that fate could come in many forms. The man who insisted on returning the item was not one to give up easily. Upon realizing that both he and the two were Americans, the gentleman kindly helped Faith put on her shoes. Working in the shoe industry, he immediately recognized Faith's shoe size. Additionally, Faith's stunning beauty left a deep impression on this man. Hopefully, the hurried Faith could find her own fate with a pair of comfortable shoes. Once Faith put on the shoes, she instantly regained her vitality. However, this man clearly had no intention of leaving. Fate certainly needs to be actively grasped, but there is no need to blindly pursue someone you have never met. Fortunately, this man spoke Italian and could be a great help to Faith. The man asked Faith to say the name of the person she was looking for. After all her running around, Faith finally spoke the name Damon. Hearing this, the man who had put on his coat suddenly understood. The man claimed that he was Damon Bradley himself. Faith then realized that the Damon she had been searching for was this kind-hearted man. Seeing her destined partner, Faith happily fainted. Fortunately, this fainting was only temporary, and the happy times would continue for a long time. Damon was as handsome, charming, and romantic as Faith had imagined. Faith received the most beautiful rose in the world from her beloved's hand. Ecstatic, Faith couldn't help but gently caress Damon. Without the tangible touch, Faith would have thought this was a dream. But the Damon in front of her was undeniably real. Damon not only had passionate eyes, but also recited poems by Goethe and Rilke with Faith. To anyone, the two seemed like a perfect match, complementing each other. Only by being together could everything reach fulfillment. Damon's gaze remained fixed on Faith. To the soothing melody of the saxophone, the two walked hand in hand across the long bridge. Without any warning, the two, who were in sync, could dance gracefully anytime and anywhere. The taste of this happiness is a gift from fate to the two of them. The two danced until deep into the night. Even when returning, the two, still not finished, chose to ride in a romantic carriage. The small path in Rome at night is quiet and leisurely, and the crisp sound of hooves is the gentlest lullaby for the two. Before sleepiness overtakes them, they made an even more novel discovery. Passing by the church of Santa Maria in Cosmedin, they saw the famous Mouth of Truth. It is said that dishonest people who put their hands inside will be bitten hard. The witty Damon immediately imitated Gregory Peck's tone, while the elegant Faith resembled Audrey Hepburn. The two are about to perform their own Roman holiday here. Unlike the plot of the classic film, their outstretched hands met at the same time, and their retraction was very in sync. As Plato said, those who find their other half will ultimately achieve completeness. The two, who understand each other, do not need others to validate their feelings. A deep kiss is enough to explain everything. The flame of love instantly ignited between them. Even so, Faith still planned to confess to her lover. Faith was already engaged, and her fiancé, who was far across the ocean, was Dwayne, a former classmate of Damon. Upon hearing this, Damon felt as if struck by lightning. The woman he had fallen for at first sight was actually someone else's fiancée. This was truly bizarre. Faith decided to end things with Dwayne before spending a wonderful night with her lover, but Damon knew that Faith should not make that call. With the effects of the wine growing stronger, Damon gently embraced his lover. It was not only Faith who had concerns, her lover also had unspoken troubles. To Faith, who had found her destined partner, true love needed no reservations. Any worries could be openly shared. After hearing this, Damon finally felt relieved. Damon smiled and told Faith that he was not Damon, but Peter Wright. Peter's casual words sounded like thunder to Faith. Faith pushed Peter away and prepared to turn and leave. Peter, just as panicked as the startled Faith, was in a state of confusion. Peter, who was bewildered, was not different from Damon except for his name. Peter's words seemed to make sense. But Faith, whose fantasies were shattered, believed that even if the feelings were genuine, one must follow the arrangements of fate. With tears streaming down her face, Faith could never understand. Even if Peter used Damon's name, a person's temperament and charm cannot be easily imitated. Why had she not noticed anything unusual all night? In Kate's view, Faith was merely deceived by a man. All men are good at deception, and Kate's husband is no exception. Life is full of drama, but the wheels of fate have never stopped turning. Even if Kate adheres to reality, she cannot avoid being troubled by her emotions. Despite Kate's inquiries, the hotel owner insists that Kate's husband is not having an affair. The words of the elders have their own wisdom. Larry works hard every day for the family's livelihood, and aside from Kate's subjective feelings, there is no evidence of infidelity. Even if Kate wants to communicate with Larry, he cannot hear his wife's voice clearly in their dilapidated home. Kate does not understand what her hesitations truly mean. Although Kate can control her own fate, compared to Faith, who firmly believes in destiny, Kate places too much emphasis on reality. Men are not to be trusted. This applies to her husband far across the ocean, as well as to Peter, who is trying to win Faith's favor. As Peter said, everyone who comes to Italy and walks the streets of Rome is driven by an unrelenting fate. Peter and Faith sparked a love story, but the one Faith is pursuing has always been Damon Bradley. Regardless of status, wealth, or poverty, Peter cannot influence that. Kate has no intention of helping this anxious man. Giovanni, who arrives as promised, is the one Kate has been waiting for. For some reason, even when going out on a date, Kate still thinks about Larry across the ocean. Kate vaguely remembers that Larry was once a spirited artist in his youth, but painting alone cannot support a family. Over time, Larry became a craftsman dealing with paint and building materials all day long. As Giovanni said, Americans are too focused on tangible rewards. Busy work makes one forget about life, food, and love. It's not only Kate who is distracted. The haggard Peter also cannot concentrate on his work. Peter can never forget that red shoe. Peter probably suspects that the owner of the shoe has perhaps shed her red attire. Disillusioned Faith is about to embark on her journey back to America. But what Faith never expected was that the one who ultimately retained her was Kate, who had been complaining about men just yesterday. Kate not only carefully keeps Faith's experiences from yesterday, but also clearly states that even if Peter is not Damon, he has already captured Faith's heart. Sticking to fate does not necessarily require running around. Listening to one's inner voice is also a way. Ultimately, everything still needs to be carefully considered by Faith herself. Giovanni is still waiting downstairs, and Kate must also follow her heart. Words are like tender buds in spring, just waiting for the right moment. Confused Faith still booked a taxi for her return trip. But when Faith sees Peter, who has been waiting for a long time, her heart still races. Peter is right. Even if last night's man was not Damon, Faith has indeed been moved. Faith angrily accused Peter of the deception that night, claiming it was all an illusion. Watching Peter walk away, Faith fell into deep thought. At least Faith understood one thing. Both fate and true love require active pursuit. This time, it was not Faith who was running, but Peter, who was unwilling to accept the situation. Determined, Peter vowed that he had found Damon. The legendary Damon was near the coast of Rome. In the picturesque seaside town, anything was possible. After Giovanni's confirmation, the two learned that Damon was by the pool behind the courtyard. Additionally, Damon was wearing a gold necklace. The person lying on the lounge chair soaking up the sun looked very suspicious. Despite feeling somewhat awkward, Faith mustered her courage and approached the other person. Before Faith could speak, a voice nearby called out for Damon. It seemed that the long-haired man rising from the pool was the real Damon. This completely caught Peter off guard. Proud Faith immediately turned her head, wanting to dampen the spirit of this guide. No one could determine that Damon wouldn't be her ideal partner. Faith promptly arranged to have dinner with him that night. It wasn't just Faith making progress. Larry, who worked day and night, received a call from the bank due to a large credit card transaction. Larry then realized that his wife had gone far away to Italy. Larry was correct. Under the Mediterranean dusk was his wife, whose emotions were complicated. Kate was sure that Larry would love the architectural style of Italy. The well-dressed Faith also always believed in the existence of beautiful fates. It wasn't just Faith who was gaining happiness. Since a joyful event was approaching, Giovanni also planned to host a grand party. Opportunities should not be missed. An uneasy Peter sent a carefully prepared gift. Peter not only chose a pair of fitting shoes for Faith, but also knew her favorite clothing and jewelry. It's hard to imagine that the two had only known each other for a few days. Perhaps the perception of beauty is a common human nature. The Damon welcoming Faith indeed had an extraordinary demeanor. Waiting downstairs, Peter witnessed the scene from afar, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. But Peter did not know that the seemingly calm Faith was already unhappy inside. The handsome Damon, however, was arrogant and crude inside. Moreover, Damon, who had no interest in the arts, behaved quite frivolously. Faith found this extremely distasteful. After enduring for a long time, Peter immediately stepped forward and punched Damon as a lesson. A farce unfolded once again. Before Kate could explain clearly to Giovanni, the sounds of fighting outside interrupted them. Peter's sudden action left everyone present in shock. From the argument between the two, a troubled Faith learned the truth. It turned out that the impersonator Damon was just an actor hired by Peter. Peter only wanted Faith to understand that what she was pursuing was not just a name. His feelings for her could not be replaced by anyone. But Faith, who had been deceived multiple times, was unwilling to listen to Peter's explanation anymore. Faith immediately escaped the scene with Kate. Disheartened, Peter quickly seized the last opportunity to confess to Faith. Everything Peter did was out of fear of losing Faith. Although Peter had planned this terrible party and hired an unreliable actor, Peter assured Faith that once she left, he would miss her madly. The two of them were indeed a match made in heaven. Both of them, having escaped the farce, were toyed with by fate, falling into melancholy. Faith was troubled by this fate. Peter, who was retaliated against by the actor, deeply regretted his clumsy actions. However, for the heartbroken Faith, the trip to Italy was not without gains. Peter was right. Dwayne was not her true love. Faith ultimately wrote a notice to cancel the wedding and embarked on her journey back to the United States. The story seemed to be nearing its end. The hurried Peter and Giovanni didn't even say goodbye to Kate, who had come to see them off. But the seemingly lonely Kate was not alone. Larry, who had traveled a long distance, was always concerned about Kate. Larry finally set aside work and had the chance to express the feelings he had bottled up for so long. Larry loved Kate deeply, missed Kate, and without Kate, he was in unbearable pain. This heartfelt confession was exactly the response Kate had been longing for. This meeting was of great significance. With Larry's appearance, the mystery of Damon's identity was finally unraveled. In fact, Damon Bradley was just a baseball player from school back in the day. It was Larry who manipulated the Ouija board game and also bribed the fortune teller. There are no destined lovers in this world. Everything is Faith's own choice. Faith and Peter had both rushed to the airport, and no one could explain the reasons to them. Fortunately, fate is a bond that lasts a lifetime and will not dissipate due to the end of a journey. At the Rome airport, the announcement still broadcasted Damon's name. Both Faith and Peter, feeling downcast, reignited hope due to this sudden news. The two, who were about to part ways, met again under the witness of Mr. Damon. As their eyes met, they almost simultaneously called out to Mr. Damon. After clarifying the whole matter, Peter also asked Faith about Damon's profession. In Peter's view, the only regret was that he did not have the fitting name. Everything that needed to be said had been said. With tearful eyes, Peter turned to leave after offering his sincere blessings to the two. Although Damon was confused, he could see that Peter deeply loved the woman in front of him. The key was whether Faith loved Peter. Damon's questioning was deafening. Amidst the noise of the airport, Faith seemed to gain an unprecedented calm. Indeed, Faith loved Peter. Mr. Damon finally solved this perplexing problem that troubled many. Damon then urged Faith to hurry to the boarding gate. Awakening to the truth, Faith ran once again on the path to seek true love. Faith only had a ticket to New York, but Peter's destination was Boston. After enduring hardships, would Faith once again miss her true love? The answer was no. The staff at the Italian airport were unwilling to separate this couple who had endured trials. Successfully rebooking her ticket, Faith boarded the flight to Boston with the help of the airport staff. All the passengers in the cabin applauded and blessed the two who embraced each other. The god of love on the runway also sent the most sincere wishes to this destined couple.